Hi everyone, this is Jensen with Sutton Ridge Farm, and I'm here today with Steve Skluzacek
There we go.
out of New Prague, Minnesota. And we are going to walk through how he gets the maple syrup made.
Good.
It says wood-fired maple syrup.
Great. Yeah, we're going to start with assembling the frame, going to the woods, tap a tree. Then we'll come back to our sugar shack here, and I'll explain how we get the product into the shack and what we do to cook it down and get it ready for syrup.
All right, let's go.
All right, we've got metal frames that we use for our collecting syrup or the sap from the trees. And we'll assemble one. These bags are made and fit for this application here, and get it put around this metal ring, and then it just slides into this frame here. Pull it down, and there's the hole. Once we get the teeth tapped, we put the tap in, and then this hangs on that tap and collects the sap from the trees. We have, in this case, there's two sizes generally of these. This is the larger of the two sizes, and we have a 7/16 bit that we drilled about a 2-inch hole into a 2-inch deep hole into the trees, and then we drive this in with a hammer. These are the most common sizes, and what we see with the maple syrup industry. We've got the 8-ounce, the 12-ounce, 16-ounce, and then the 32-ounce. We'll go into the trees now, or into the woods. You'll see some of the trees having the frames and the bags on them, and we'll tap and show you how that process is done. So into the woods we go. This year we've got an unusual year with very little snow, and actually through this collecting of maple sap, we really didn't have any snow at all. We did get some rain. You need the freezing overnight and the thawing during the day to get the sap moving up and down on that tree, and that's where we intercept that sap line and collect the sap. Actually this year was very comfortable, easy getting around because there's no snow. Unlike last year, we had 26 inches of snow in the woods when we started. Makes it a lot harder. That's from one year to the next, it does change it quite a bit. Generally, this collecting sap, what I found in the last 15 years I've done this, will go from 4 to 6 weeks. And depending on the weather is going to determine how much sap you've got. If it's a dry year, you don't have as much sap coming out of the trees. If you got enough moisture, we get a little bit more sap coming out of the trees. So every year does differ. But if you do start collecting sap, you'll find that it is somewhat similar, but yet different. But it's just a fun little hobby if that's what you want to do.
So Steve, how many acres or how many trees are you tapping then?
I've got over 200 trees that I've got tapped, and I've got 10 acres. Here's our property. So
now, are those all sugar maples?
oh, they're yes, they're in the hard maple, sugar maple. There's some black maple in there. There's red maple, sugar maple are very similar. I do stay away from the soft maple, and the box elder is also in the maple tree family. That and soft maples are the least sugar content in that sap. So the hard maple is better for collecting sap. So
good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Another tap. I like to kind of take a look at the roots, and this is the roots coming out of here, and sometimes, and this tree is a little bit too tall, but if there's a limb that's coming out of that tree in the same area where there's a root, I like to intercept that tap in that area because there's a chance that there's a fair amount of sap feeding that large tree. So drilling the hole, you want to go as much horizontal into the tree as possible. You don't want to get a wobbled out hole, so you want to hold the drill real stiff so it would not leak around the spout. We put that spout in, then take the hammer and wrap that in so it gets nice and tight. You can hear that little bit of a ping on that tap when I drove it in, and it got tight because it kind of got wedged in there. And then it just goes right on top and locks on there, and doesn't come off because that little lip on that that tap will, this lip right here will hook on the top of this frame here. So that's what holds it in there. So it's really a nice little system, and the tap now will go into that bag, and when we're dumping out the bag for tap, we just take it off and we pour it out, and it pours just like a milk pitcher. It's so nice to control the sap going into your containers.
Well, this is just the beginning of the whole process,
Right,
getting it.
Right, now we, after we collect that, and that sap is going to come out of that tree with about 2 1/4 or so, 2 1/2, what they call bricks, and that's the sugar content in it. And once we get done with when the syrup is made, I have a hydrometer that we check the syrup to get it consistent. Those bricks are like 59 bricks. So we evaporate a lot of water. It usually is about, on the average, about 40 gallons of sap to make a gallon of syrup. This year, the sugar content in the sap was not very sweet, so it was about 42 to 1. Last year, I think it was about 37 to 1. All right, when we have the tank on the back of the tractor, I also have a smaller tub on the back of a four-wheeler, but that is one of the things that we collect sap with. And once we get that filled, so we'll come back to our shack area here, and I got a bulk tank, purchased a bulk tank, and it works great because that's insulated, helps keep that sap cold. Once that's filled up, so then we have a RO system that we purchased this year, and that is then now in this container here, and this is stainless steel, insulated, so it keeps it from freezing on these cold nights. But that's a RO system. What that does is eliminates about half the water. There's the water coming in, you've got half of the water that's got the sugar in it would go up into that stainless steel tub on that scaffold, and then the other 50% would get discharged out. So what happens is we get half the amount of cooking time, and when that sap, how I mentioned, the bricks coming out of the tree, the sap, the sugar content is 2 1/4 to 2 1/2 in there somewheres. When it runs through the system, the discharge water has virtually no sugar in it, and that water that sugar water that goes up into there is about 5. So it's about double the amount of sugar in it, and so that helps with eliminating some wood, time cooking, and keeps the process going a little quicker. Now we're inside the sugar shack. You saw the 215-gallon tank on that scaffold, the bulk tank out there. Well, the liquid that's in that bulk, or that cylinder on that scaffold, is rigged up with hoses to come into my sugar shack, and this is a float system that I've got here, and when the wood cooks that sap down, so then the level drops, and then this float opens up and it lets more sap into that cooker. So it's an automatic feed, works great. You just need to watch that amount in that 215-gallon tank on top, so you don't deplete that, because if you have too hot of a fire in here and your sap starts going down, things start burning, and you gotta stay away from that. See the steam coming off of that. Ooh. And it does a good job of evaporating. I got just a very light boil going, and there's quite a firebox in these things. Ooh.
So what are you looking for to know that this is boiled down to the proper
you're
syrup
gonna
level?
You will see that in the color. See, this is start here. We got to get it out of the. Well,
Sure.
it's going to be steaming for us.
That's that's good.
You know,
Yep.
as long as there's a little bit of a color to it,
Okay.
and then it's got like a copper color. Well, then over here, the middle one is going to be almost clear. It's got a little bit of brown to it, and that third one would be pretty much clear.
Okay.
Clear water, and that's
Okay.
what happens. Well, this guy over here, and
Oh.
this is about as close to syrup as you can
Ooh.
get.
Oh, that is
It's,
beautiful.
it's getting real close.
Oh.
Now that, and what happens is after I kind of gauge it, so once these cookers have about 200 to 300 gallons of sap run through them, I let them cool down and I get that out of there and I put it into this one because this is a lot slower boiling unit that I've got here, and so it doesn't burn the product and it doesn't burn on the side, and I let that finish off a little more. Each time it comes out of a cooker from here to here, I filter it out with a pre-filter. Then when it comes out of here, I filter it out again, and then it goes into a finishing box over there. I'll show you the filters.
So I've got a question here. So you've got, you know, these three
Right.
vats over here, and then you've got the more of the syrup over
Right,
here.
right.
How do you make that jump? How do you get all of that over
Right.
here?
So then I'll take that off. I'll set a bucket underneath here, put that in there, and then I put that around there, and I open this valve up and let the sap come, or starting the sugar, get into the bag, drain through. When the bucket's full, then I go and pour it into the next cooker. From this one here, and this is going to be almost maple syrup is going to start testing. So, and when it starts testing, then I know it needs to go into this one over here. That's my finish cooker. And this one now is going to be, we use propane to finish it.
Okay.
Because the reason for that is when maple syrup gets close to being, when it reaches that point of being syrup, you need to be very careful so it doesn't boil over or foam up.
So you have to have a lot of control on that
Right.
heat.
So
Okay.
and when that starts foaming, it just rises in a matter of 30 seconds. It's going to be foaming over, and you'll lose a bet. So with the gas, as soon as you shut the gas off, it stops and it settles down. So it's just that fast.
Wow.
Where we can't control wood well enough to stop that boil, and so that's why I do that with that. And then again, it just like right here is this comes out, and I put a pipe extension on there, and then we have the Orlon filters that I hang on my bolt here, and I'll go get one to show you what the Orlon filter is. A lot heavier filter, and you need to have the filters wet. Will not block up nearly as much, and then you also want to do the syrup when it's filtered out when it's boiling hot, because when the syrup cools down, it won't go through the filters because it's too thick. So then we've got the syrup filtered out, and then the next process is right here. I'll turn this around here. This is a turkey cooker with a kettle on it, and that syrup then is in there, and I have this temperature gauge that I slide over the top of this kettle, and the reason for that is we need that at least 180 degrees to can it, otherwise it will not seal the bottles. So then get that up to 180 plus degrees. I keep it between 180 to 200 degrees, and then here's my spout that I just open up and fill my bottles, and so it just a simple process, but it works well.
Simple process, but a lot of work. So
Yeah, right.
even though you've perfected a few things like with the RO system and everything, there's still a lot of it's all a lot of hands-on work. You're schlepping buckets and lifting and cutting wood and
Right.
Do you have to preheat those bottles or keep them warm?
Yes, that's a good thing. We're they're back out here. If you saw these grills, and what happens is I put those bottles on a shelf or aluminum or pan of some sort, and I preheat them so they're warm to the touch. The sealing process is, I didn't give it much thought as far as how do you get something to seal? Well, what it is when the product is heated up, these lines I have approximately that high, so as it cools, it shrinks that much. Well, the shrinking process is what seals the bottle. And as it's heated, it expands, and as it cools, it contracts. So that's what puts the seal on the bottle. So
that's great. Now, question now, because this is the pure real maple syrup, after it's opened, you should refrigerate it, right?
That is correct. Yeah. The nice thing with the maple syrup, and I've had it where you grab a bottle and it was supposed to be sealed and it's not, and there's some mold or something growing on that. Get that out of there, dump that syrup into a kettle, bring it to a boil, and you can put it back in the refrigerator and it's going to be fine. You kill the bacteria in it, and it's just fine. So anyways, it's a fun process. It's all natural. There's nothing in there other than the sap coming out of the tree and a little bit of smoke from the cookers, and we bottle it and use it for pancakes. And there's some people that are using it for cooking and baking, and they use that instead of sugar. They said it adds a different taste to it, and they enjoy using it because it's natural. They're looking for a natural product, and that's what we have here. So.
Well, I think it's the best stuff on the planet, and
okay.
We're happy to carry it in our farm store.
Great.
And I know you carry it in some other places in the New Prague area too.
Right. I'm glad it's happening. There's people that say don't stop doing your process the way you are because we like that taste, that maple syrup, and we can't find it anyplace else. So that's great. Some have told me when I've given them a bottle or they bought a bottle or tasted it, they said it reminds them of the maple syrup that their grandpa used to make in the woods on open fire with a kettle, cooking it down, and they said it's got that smoky taste, and I said that's close to what we're doing here. So
it is what you're doing, and we love it, and we're so happy that you took the time today, Steve, to tell us how it's all done. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. Right. Thank you for having me.